Hey guys, welcome to the video, hope you're all doing well. Today I'm going to be talking about Mass Effect Andromeda and FPS, because it would seem the game so far, even without the new drivers, has really polarized the entire community of Mass Effect fans and newcomers to the game. For it would seem that some people apparently are completely happy to be able to play at 4K 60 FPS absolutely no problems, which I'm really dubious about because it would seem SLI is not working at all in the game, even with some funky tinkering with the likes of NVIDIA Inspector, which basically lets you use profiles of other games with any game you like, and sometimes that does improve things or makes things worse. As of today, I'm going to cover my experience so far FPS-wise and give you a kind of a benchmark. But before we begin, just so nobody gets the wrong idea, I will show you the very particular settings that I am going on here to make my point. I have seen a lot of people saying the game runs completely fine for them, and then they say they're running in like 900p medium settings. That's not the game running fine, that's the game running low-end, mid-end range graphics. I'm talking about almost everything, all singing, all dancing, like you should be able to do with the kind of system I have. I mean, there's people with systems even better than mine who should be able to get maximum everything. Literally the only thing that I turn down is the anti-aliasing, because at 2K resolution you don't tend to need any anti-aliasing, even less so when you're talking about 4K resolution. So this little selection here from NeoGAF on their forum shows a bunch of people talking about the game and having various different results in FPS and performance and crashes, and generally discussing what they like and dislike about the game as well. A bit of a mishmash, but it's there. Also, I feel as though, not that he deserves it, but Sully deserves a little bit of a shout out for pointing out the thing about using NVIDIA Inspector. I was thinking about doing it, but wasn't going to bother, but then he said it was all singing, all dancing, and it was awesome, and the performance was fantastic, which is partly true, but we'll get into why that is not actually 100% accurate. But he's a very angry little man, or small child, but he did say about doing this, so I've got to give him kudos kind of for the point of saying try this to see if it's better, and it is and it isn't, and I'll get into that in a second. And before we get started, here is the stock settings that I will be using. So here you can see 1080p, 2K, it's 2560 by 1440p, and the frame buffer is left as normal, and we have film grain off. Qualities on everything ultra, apart from anti-aliasing, which is turned on just to the first one, FXAA. Everything else is as high as it will possibly go. So, to begin with, I know this isn't a perfect way of recording, guys, but this is SLI normally within the game. Now, this is a way of obviously recording without affecting my FPS results at any point. So, it's not the greatest quality recording my own screen with a camera, but as you can see, it works. Now, the main FPS drops are notably in the cutscenes. Whether they can patch that, whether it's a loading thing, an optimization bit there, it's very difficult to tell. But just focusing on the FPS, I'm going to do a little circuit around the space station at the bottom here. As you can see, we're holding pretty much always above 60, but there are some massive drops. They're only there for a little second, it's like a little hitch, but you can tell even with G-Sync can't fully get rid of these massive drops. You see, it's very inconsistent. It's anywhere from 90 all the way down to in the 50s. Now, it's not major, but it's enough to be distracting. So, moving on to just one 1080, not in SLI. SLI is disabled. We can already see it as 2 extra FPS in the menu. And the menu is still only running at 50 FPS, which is weird. But as we load into the game, you'll see that there is almost no discernible difference between running one 1080 and 2. Okay, we've finished loading in. As you can see, GTX 1080 is already a lot smoother because you don't get any of that SLI stutter to begin with. And we're holding above 60. And then just so you know that I haven't done anything weird, everything is as it was. So we're still at 2K. As you can see, we got all the way down to exactly 60 just then. So on just one GTX 1080, you actually do get fairly decent FPS. It's not ideal, but it's something. Obviously, this isn't taking into account massive combat, big open areas. This is just indoors. But as you can see, as soon as you go into a conversation, the FPS nosedives all the way down to 25 FPS. 25 FPS is the least I've seen so far, and that was in SLI. So I don't know what it is. Maybe it's something to do with how the conversations work, but it's not like it drops down to 30 FPS for that cutscene effect or anything like that for the sort of a movie feel. It just plummets for no discernible reason during the camera changes, just like there. I mean, you can see quite clearly there. And so anyway, I will continue the circuit. Just get as close to a benchmark as we can. This seems to be quite an intensive area, or at least in terms of the game optimization, because as soon as you turn around at the top here, again, FPS nosedives for an indoor section. You cannot get reliable 60 FPS with one 1080 or even 2 in SLI at this stage in 2K at the settings that I have provided. People showing that they could get 60 FPS and more and it stays stable. By the way, this is how you do the SLI bits with the NVIDIA Profile Inspector. You change it to Battlefield 1, Battlefield 4 on the SLI compatibility. So this is using the SLI compatibility bits for Battlefield 1 through 4 and some of the other games on the list. As already you can see in the menu system, we are above 80 FPS. Astounding, right? Will this fix everything for everybody? No, not quite. And I'm going to show you why. Now this is just going to be in the same area, same run that I've just provided for you. This is not going to contain any outdoor sections. If you want to see some outdoor sections and some combat with these benchmarks, then do let me know. As long as you've not been strobed to death by that back wall. As you can see, the FPS has already had a massive leap compared to normal SLI and one GTX 1080 on its own. As we come through here though, you will notice the sharp-eyed view there that it just dropped down below 50 for a split second. It may only be a split second, but it can affect the enjoyment of the game because it's a very noticeable hitch, at least to the naked eye. And so I'll do the standard run down here through the trees, and then we'll look back this way. So this could be a solution for those of you with a really high-end system if you want to get a bit more enjoyment out of it and a little bit less drops in your FPS. But again, it's still not ideal. This is not optimization. We should really be waiting for a driver before we play the game. It's a shame the drivers haven't been ready for early access. Hopefully they'll be ready for release. Who knows? But again, what I'm going to have to show you now is what breaks it for me. This could have been an almost 100% viable solution, but this problem still remains in the cutscenes. There is a massive drop, big hitch. Seem to be doing all right at 80 FPS, but as soon as the conversation camera pan changes, yep, straight down into 40, 30 FPS. Again, straight down into 40, 30 FPS, and it makes a massive chunk of stutter during a conversation, and it breaks the immersion. And again, even with no camera changes, just then it dropped down to 30 from 80 for no discernible reason. And again, in outdoor sections where there's a lot of combat going on, the FPS plummets once again. So it's not optimized. It's not a fancy trick to use SLI bits to improve things. It sort of slightly mitigates the problem. And basically that's all I wanted to share with you guys. So onwards and upwards, hopefully the game gets better as it goes on. But right now, not so much.